We are so lucky to have someone that we have been wanting to do for book and film night for a very long time. And he was very willing to join us. We're so fortunate to have as such a great friend and supporter of Main Street Vegan Academy, Thomas Wade Jackson. If you have seen the beautiful film, A Prayer for Compassion, which we highlight on the Compassion Consortium website, that's Thomas's exquisite 2019 film about spirituality and food choices. And he has not stopped since. He's really been traveling the world since 2015, making that film and a subsequent project that's called Compassion in Action, Bringing the Elixir Home. That is a 10-part docu-series that is really Thomas's love letter to activists, and that will be available by the end of this year or early 2023. And he's also branched out more into narrative filmmaking, something that he did early in his career. He has a Student Academy Award from back in the day, but now in this current day, he is making a comedy short called Step Strangers that will be shooting in August. And in addition to all the filmmaking for which he's known, Thomas, I'm going to be focusing on you now instead of just talking about you. I know that these days you have another name for yourself. Tell us what that is and what it's all about.
Yeah, first I just want to say thank you, Victoria, for calling me today and thinking of me. I was going to be here already, but it's a privilege and pleasure always to talk to you one-on-one, and to speak to everybody. But lately, I guess for the last year or so, I've been calling myself a vegangelist, because I got the gospel. Hallelujah. I got the good news. Because gospel is it's nothing but a little good news. And the good news I go around preaching is that the more you align yourself with your true compassionate nature, the better you're going to feel. The more energy you're going to have, the more connection you're going to feel to whatever spiritual, religious path, to all of life, to animals and people. You know, I have a gift, and it's called the gospel of spiritual alignment, and it can change your life. And brothers and sisters, I'm here to tell you today that whether you're already living a whole food, plant-based, wholesome vegan lifestyle, I believe we all can find more ways to align ourselves with that true compassionate nature. A lot of this has to do with self-care and self-compassion, because so many activists never stop. But so yeah, that's been my message for the last year or so, going around in the new film. I interview psychologists and people about communication and about self-care, and just really trying to help activists become, and including myself, become more effective and have more peace in our life.
So,
You know?
how do we make time for self care and focus on self care when we're thinking about the animals? We know that nonstop suffering, and sometimes it just feels like, well, I can't turn from that to go to a movie.
Yeah, it's really tough. And I meet a lot of activists who deal with that because there's so much to do. I mean, the hard part is not turning away, it's just finding the time to turn away. People feel like there's no time to do it. But my experience has been that, when you just push and push and push, you become way less effective. In the new docuseries, I interview Dr. Melanie Joy, and she talks about the movement doesn't need a like a army of walking zombies, trauma survivors. It needs us to really take care and realize that, I mean, personally, the way I say it is the more we're all connected, and the more you take care of yourself, the brighter your light shines, and it lightens the world around you. And I think it helps people hear what you have to say. So I think to be a more effective activist, parent, partner, anything, you have to start by taking care of yourself with self-love and self-compassion. It makes you way more effective in loving other people, I believe.
Well, you're extremely effective with your speaking, with your films, all the things that you're doing out there in the world. So, for those who don't know your story, it's got to be a little bit abbreviated because our time is short, but let us know where you started out spiritually and how you got to veganism.
Yeah, because I wasn't always a vegangelist. I wasn't always vegan. I grew up in South Georgia, and I was raised Southern Baptist. And I grew up eating what everybody else ate, just a Southern version of the standard American diet. But when I went to New York and I started a daily meditation practice, I was attending Unity Church, I was meditating every day. And that's when it happened for me. This was in 2005 before YouTube. So I wasn't really exposed to veganism or vegetarianism, and no one at Unity Church was talking about it. But when I started meditating every day, what had happened is that I grew up in the South, as I mentioned, and I saw animals killed for food. I saw my grandmother wring the necks of her chickens. I saw my dad, gutting and cleaning fish while they were alive, and looking up there and just going, one day to be an adult, I have to do this thing to be a grown up, And so and you have to bury it. I felt like you had to bury those feelings of like, this is horrific. And so I did a good job burying it for all those years. But when I started meditating every day and becoming present with everything in my life, I became present with what I was eating. I realized, oh, that was an animal that would be alive now if I hadn't chose to eat it. And I was really trying to become more of a spiritual and kind and compassionate person. And I felt like that wasn't in alignment with a vegan lifestyle. So I had heard of vegetarianism. I became vegetarian. And then within the first week or two of being vegetarian, I went to a deli and said, hey, I would have made an order. I was so proud to be vegetarian. I was like, make sure it's vegetarian. And the guy behind the counter was like, vegetarian or vegan? I went, vegan? Like, I was like, is that like Star Trek? I like never heard that word before. It was like unknown and this weird thing, but there's a little voice went off in the back of my head and it said, if there are people doing this, there must be a good reason. And I told him to make it vegan, and I just easily became vegan. Even back then, it's so funny because I've learned that, and I know personally now that it's so hard for so many people, to do something that's out of character with the indoctrination of everyone around them. But for me at that point, and I actually thought I might get sick and die. Or I didn't know about the die, but I knew I was going to get weak. Like, because I knew you needed calcium, I knew you needed protein. I'd heard all that stuff. And I said, you know what? I don't care if I get weak. I can't live like that anymore. I want to find peace in my life. Yeah.
I wonder if the reason it was easy for you was that you had reached that level of spiritual parity. You were just at that point in your inner life that your outer life had to match.
Yeah, and there's another thing that I really believe made it easier is I was away from home. I was in a city far away from, because I think what happens is when you don't leave or you're always with the same people, you take on roles and people see you a certain way. And it really, when you don't have that eye and you can just reinvent yourself, then you get to choose like, hey, do I do this or do I not do that? Not was I raised to do that, but is that part of who I want to be? And that's part of that was looking at what I was eating and other things too.
So, Thomas, you've done so much traveling. I mean, even just with Prayer for Compassion, you went to India twice, you went to Morocco. I mean, you became a total globetrotter. And I know that in addition to meeting lots of people who understand this way of life and lots of people who don't, you went to a lot of religious institutions. You met clergy out the kazoo. So tell us what you learned from them. What about this spirituality, food choices connection?
I learned so much from clergy and just people who are very faithful. I mean, people who've ever are in a particular path and they've made the connection. These are people who went back and looked at the teachings and they were able to quote teachings from their tradition. Because what I mainly discovered is every tradition that I was able to interview somebody from, their teachings of compassion is in complete alignment with the vegan diet. I mean, when you think about most religions have a golden rule. I mean, almost every religion has something that says, treat other people the way you'd like to be treated, or don't treat people the way you don't want to be treated, or something to that regard. Like it's like karma. What you put out is going to come back to you. That's in all the religions. And they also talk about the environment. They talk about your health, the body temple. They talk about taking care of animals and people. And I was really surprised about the animals, especially in the Christian tradition. Nobody really told me that we were like prescribed the vegan diet. Somehow I missed Genesis 1:29 before making the film. And so, there were so many things that I found in alignment. The other thing I noticed too and that I discovered is that it seems that a lot of ministers say that they're having a hard time getting young people into the church. Like, the way it's going, they're really worried about the religion surviving and all. And some of the ministers were very clear and able to see that a lot of it has to do with the hypocrisy, that young people are way more present and they can see when you're saying one thing and doing another. Like, I went to a church today, to a Baptist church, and they were talking about the Ten Commandments, and when they got to the one about do not kill, I kept waiting for them to say, you mean except for animals, right? Like, but they didn't say that part. But what he did say, what the preacher did talk about, was that, you can be saved whether you do the 10 commandments or not, but those 10 commandments are there for you to, as guideposts, as signs. And if you don't follow them, you will crash off the side of the road and you may die or something. And as he was saying that, I was just thinking, I noticed when I go around now, I see a lot of people suffering. I hear a lot of stories, like a lot of people from my childhood, and yeah, he's got this and they got that, and that person passed and all this. And I'm hearing the preacher basically telling everybody, look, you are not following the do not kill and you are suffering and you'll die. But he's not aware himself that it's all there. So even when the other thing I noticed too, even when I interview or speak to religious people and ministers who are not vegan, they many times build a case for veganism and what they're saying. And this morning he built a case for it. But there's just a connection that's not being made. And I think a lot of it has to do, if you're not vegan already, you're complicit in the violence. And it's really hard to look at something you're complicit in. This is why I've seen so many people and interviewed so many people that went vegan for health reasons or environmental reasons, had no interest in animals whatsoever. But after 6 months to a year, their heart softens and they get it, but it's harder when you're complicit in it, I think. But yeah, I think so. What the message I'm taking away is that, I feel like for religion to continue into the future, we have to really become accountable and look at the guideposts that are there and not turn away from them. And also, I think we need to, look at the practices that are harming and not hurtful. I think Jesus, when he talked about the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, I think we really need to go through our teachings and look at how many of them may use discernment, how many of those are causing harm and how many of those are helping, and just really be open to following the Holy Spirit and the Spirit that's alive now, and doing what we need to do and having the courage. And Jesus is a perfect example in the sense that the people of his time were very pious and very religious, but he was saying, look, we got to go past the letter of the law. We got to evaluate what we're doing, and we got to go within and find the kingdom within and live by the spirit of the law.
I think that it's easy to lose that. And as I look around at the tremendous growth of veganism, of animal rights, certainly of environmentalism, and then I look at what I see in some sorts of religious settings, it's almost like they're going a little bit backwards. And where you can, go to your regular secular office party and you'll be asked if you want, the regular or the vegan or whatever. And then at church, it's just like, no, it's a pig roast. What more do you want? And it's certainly not just Christianity. There were just some terrible things coming out of India about the terrible mistreatment of elephants who are regarded as sacred, and yet still the living elephants are mistreated in religious contexts, and it's a problem. So in having traveled all over and seen a lot, what do you do with that kind of stuff?
It's tough, like you mentioned the elephant, but the cow in India is one of the most sacred animals. And, in the film, I go to Animal Aid, and I cut this part out because it might have been a little too controversial in some way. But the director of Animal Aid talked about how there will be a cow that's sick because it got hit by a car. It ate a lot of plastic. It's laying in the ground next to a temple, and people will walk over the cow, go into the temple and worship a golden cow or a statue of a cow, and never bother to check on the other cow, never call Animal Aid and say, so what do you do with that? You're right. That's a big question. I think we really just need to have people start evaluating. And I think some religions that don't meditate, we need to really encourage the meditation. I think self-reflection and also responsibility. I think what happens, even when the minister was talking about the Ten Commandments, he really said several times, this is not going to save you. You got to ask Jesus to save you. But once you're saved, you can do the, it doesn't matter if you do whatever. Like that was the thing for me, is like in Christianity, when I grew up, like I got saved, I felt like I could do anything and I'm going to heaven. Like I had my free ticket. And so I think we have to reevaluate and try to say, no, 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 we're stewards. We have to go back and look at those, the beginning of the, when we were given dominion, and look at what dominion really means. And if you see the film, Jeffrey Cohen nails it. And we need to take that dominion and we need to apply it to all of the earth and become stewards and take responsibility. One of the sad things is I was in a grocery store with a person one time, and I made a comment about the environment or whatever, and they're a very religious person. They said, "Oh, don't worry about it. God's going to fix it all." And my heart just dropped. And I thought, what we really need to be teaching people is that the only hands that God has on this earth is our hands. Like you can't leave it up to God to come and fix this without God working through us. So I think the solution has to be is empowering and encouraging people to let God work through them to make a better planet, and don't wait for God to do it. Like have faith in God, but do the work. Without doing the work, the faith in God is just letting his creation be destroyed and being a part of it. Like I think we really have to encourage people to step up and do the work of God and be the hands of God.
Amen. Well, one of the other beings that those of us who are parents or who have children in our lives have an interest in is certainly those children. And yeah, your daughter Melody was just such a wonderful part of the film. She was just a little thing. Now she's 9 years old. So talk to us a little bit about the spirituality of being a dad.
Being a dad is what changed me more than anything in the world. And I was fortunate to be 45 when this happened to me. I'm afraid that if I was younger, I would have missed this beautiful opportunity to be present. And I think I was fortunate to have already found meditation and things like that, and know that this is spiritual responsibility. I mean, I have a responsibility to, despite all of the indoctrination of what a parent means the way I got it back in the 70s, which was not a very encouraging, positive way, I have a responsibility to go through my stuff and make sure I don't lay it on her. And that can be hard. You can see it coming out. Like it's so easy to fall back into the way you were. So I think one of my biggest responsibilities is to be present to the fact that that this is a child who is a being of her own design, who came here to do what she's here to do. I'm not to tell her that this is your path or that's your path, but I'm to introduce her to many things and let her choose from them. So I really feel blessed that I was able to take her around with the film when we were making the film, and after we made the film, she got to travel and watching her grow and seeing the light within her and seeing her separateness from me and her mom and all this develop is like a gift. And it's scary sometimes, but it's beautiful. And I think being a parent is like when you sign on, like it wasn't something I was planning on, it just happened. So I don't know that I ever would have thought I was ready to do it, because that was my thing. I'm never going to be ready to do it. But once it happens, you have to be ready to step up. There's too many parents I see that are not stepping up, that are not putting their children first. And this is why I do the work I do. This is why I made the film, is for her and those children that are coming. So yeah, being a parent is special. And I'm grateful that I had the opportunity and have the opportunity.
So just in our last minute, Thomas, tell us what's most important to you today? What do you see for the future?
I think most important today is I have Melody today. So just finishing our day together and spending it. Next week, she'll be with her mom. I'll have new important things to focus on. But I think every day the most important thing is to really just wake up with before I get out of bed, I'm always connecting and saying, I'm one with spirit. Lead me today, guide me today. I think just the willingness to be happiness and to be love and to be the things that you would like to see on the planet. I think those are important, because I think we have so many messages and there's so much shame around us and in the culture that it's easy to not step out. I mean, all of these things I'm doing, we talked a little bit of other things I'm doing. I have doubts all along the way, but you know what? I've learned that that's just part of it. That hey, thank you for sharing. I got to be busy today. I got to do this and just keep doing the work. So that's to me, it's just taking every day and being walking through any fear that comes forward or any doubt, and doing what you know you need to do with love and joy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And for anybody that has not seen the film A Prayer for Compassion, you can find that on Vimeo and on Amazon Prime. You can also go to aprayerforcompassion.com. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can see it for free and give it away for free. Also, I created a tiny URL. It's easy to remember. Tiny URL dash and the initials AP or APFC dash free. So it's tiny URL / APFC dash free. Feel free to watch it, pass it on. You can also rent it on Vimeo, but I want it to be available for anybody who would like to see it.
Cool. All right. We'll put all that in our post materials. And bless you, Thomas. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.